All the things I do not want to see in Godforge. If you guys watch my video, I'm always praising Godforge and all the good things they're actually bringing to that type of games. But in this video, I want to talk about all the stuff I really don't want to see. And I would really like you guys' opinions in the comments down below. See if you agree with me or not, or if you have other stuff you want to add to my list. Let's get into it. What's up guys, Ramsey here, back for another Godforge video. So we've got about 7 things I guess that I really don't want to see in the game. We're not going to talk about rates and monetization a lot. We did talk about this in the previous couple of videos. The one thing I will mention about monetization, and it's one of my point I guess, is the pop-up windows. Honestly, pop-up windows when you open the game can be a freaking nightmare. I don't know if it happens to you guys, but a lot of those gacha games or you know, hero collector games, they have a ton of windows. It's not just windows opening every time you open the game. It's not only shop offers. Sometimes it's also news, like little news articles, or send you to a video or whatever. And sometimes it's just too much back to back. I can't tell you how many times I opened one of those games and I have to close 5 freaking windows, mostly from the shop, before I can actually play the game. So you know, if it's a news article or whatever it is, I want to see it once and then I don't ever want to see it again. And then if it's you know, offers from the shop, you know, once in a while it's fine. If you just use the, you know, let's say you used all of your gems and suddenly you have a pop-up window saying, hey, do you want more gems? That's fine. But when I, you know, log into the game, don't start the game with 5 freaking windows that I have to close, because that is the most frustrating thing in my opinion. Do watch the video until the end, because at the end I will give you the one thing that makes me nuts in terms of content that I really don't want to see. The second thing I really don't want to see in Godforge, guys, is I'm assuming we're going to have some type of tournaments. So this is Red Shadow Legends, as you can see here. So they have tournaments and events, which I think will have, I'm sure something similar in Godforge. But they do actually pretty often do tournaments where, you know, on the right here, you can, that's the rewards based on the points you get. So if you get enough points, you get all of those rewards. But then here, you have a competition between you and other players, right? So the issue I'm having with some of those tournaments is that a lot of the time they actually, for special event and stuff, they put a legendary champion right here as the max reward, right? So this is such an unhealthy way of creating competition between players, and it's basically forcing players to spend more and more, and it's so predatory and so unhealthy, and I freaking hate it. There are so many ways, you know, to make players compete against each other and actually use and waste even their resources, you know, but doing it in such a way to where you have to use your own money to do it, I think it's very unhealthy for the game. So you know, if they find tournaments like that where you have to farm like crazy and use all of your energy, or if you have to do something where you have to use all of your gems, or even, you know, whatever resource it is, where you just have to use a lot of it to try to win and compete, that's fine. If they can make it to where, you know, you have to just beat certain content to compete in that one tournament, maybe it's a tournament where the person that clears a boss the quickest, whatever, wins the legendary at the end or whatever, that's fine. But there's so many ways you can have players compete against each other and actually use a lot of resources without obviously telling them, we just want your money, we just want you to spend money against each other, and basically this legendary will just go to the highest bidder, and I think that's freaking terrible. So I really don't want to see that personally in those tournaments. So my next point, again, I'm comparing to Raid because I've sort of been playing for 6 years. I'm sure some other games out there do the exact same. Raid has a fusion system, which, so they have 2 different kinds or whatever, but they have a fusion system. We have Nordura right now. I did not do this fusion, but fusions are great. I think they're a really cool way of getting legendary champions. But over the years, as they added content and they added new features to the game, now all the champions in Raid, for them to be very valuable and get really good, you see here we go with the pop-up again. They need the blessings, right? They need blessings to be very good. And now what they've done is fusion were already pretty hard for free-to-play players. You can do them after a few months of playing. You can do the fusion as free-to-play, but it does require some preparation. You got to save for a long time, and you got to be very smart on how you go about doing the fusion. But now they've made it to where you can potentially do the fusion, but then usually they add some type of event. So here it's a path event. Sometimes it's some type of Titan event, where then if you want to go get the blessings for the champions, which is the rare stars, you just can't do it. As a free-to-play, you just cannot do it. As a low spender, you probably do it. You can probably do it. As a free-to-play, you could, but it will take you months and months of saving to be able to do both the fusion and then come get the blessings right here. So that's something I really don't want to see personally. You know, I mean, and again, there's a fine balance to do stuff like that, but you know, I don't want to see something that to where they would add something that's so important to get for a specific champion, that let's say you spend a ton of resources to an event or whatever it is to get a champion, but then to make that champion very valuable, you need to go get something else that's as or even more expensive to get the champion itself, and then it become very, you know, pay to win or whatever it is, and so expensive that even low spenders can't really get to it. And that's really something I personally don't want to see, because I'm a low spender. I have a massive account in Raid. I'm super in game. I'm in the #1 clan in the game, and I most of the time I can't do those. I can go get the fusion because I save up, but it's extremely rare that I can go and finish one of those to get the blessings or whatever it is. On that same vein, guys, talking about the value of the champions, you know, with Godforge, the champions are going to be extremely good at base, but then we have the awakening system, where you can awaken your champion by using duplicate of the same champion to level them up to level 5. So that, in a way, once you have them level 5, obviously will unlock the full potential of your champion and make it way stronger. But I do believe the way they come at base, they are already very strong and very usable. My only worried, and again, it's happening in Raid right now, and it's been happening for a while. So because of the awakening system, and then in Godforge, we also have the weapon and the imprint. I really don't want that to happen for Godforge, so I do want them to be careful. But in Raid, basically, when you get a legendary champion now, if you just get a legendary champion by itself, unless you and I'm talking if you super early game, mid game, doesn't really matter. I'm talking about more end game stuff, arena, PvP, whatever, or very min-maxing, you know, all the super end game content. Just getting a legendary means absolutely nothing nowadays. If I go and get that fusion right now, it means absolutely nothing. As it is, the champion for end game is probably pretty useless. Now with Raid, once you have the legendary champion, you need the blessings. We just talked about it. To make the champion very valuable, you need those 5 to 6 star blessings. Why? Because it gives you such a big bonus. Obviously, it makes the blessing itself a lot stronger when you have it 5 to 6 star, but then also it gives you some really good bonus stats. I mean, getting 20 plus speed or 45 crit damage, I mean, this is huge. Plus 90 accuracy based on the champion, this is huge. And then the bonuses themselves, they are crazy good when you get to 5 and 6 stars. So again, that for the end game, right, that's super important. And then on top of that, you need to get a good relic. You need to get one of the really good relics based on what you want to do. Again, I'm using rare ones here because I'm keeping my best one for some specific champions, but you need to then go get the mythical or the legendary relics that are going to be super important for the champions. And then you also have the empowering, which is similar to the awakening in Godforge, where you can empower your champion to get them up to +4. And again, the empowering is super important because you gain a ton of stat. If you go to the stat right here, empowerment, that's all the stat I'm gaining. So again, a lot of speed and then accuracy as well, attack, whatever it is based on the champion. So a lot of layers. Once you have that legendary, you have a lot of layers after that to really get that legendary to the next level. And it becomes basically impossible for free to play or low spender to have a good amount of those champions to get to that level, right? So I really want them to be careful, especially with the awakening system, the weapon, and the imprint, that they don't make it at some point where, well, now I'm getting legendary champions, but they kind of useless unless I get them to level 5, or unless I get that very specific legendary weapon or imprint on them, if that makes sense. So just want them to be careful. They don't end up after, you know, many months or years of adding stuff, that they don't end up making the base legendary basically useless. That's all I'm trying to say. 2 more points, guys, and the last one, honestly, if I see it in the game, I'm quitting. I'm quitting right away. I'm giving my YouTube channel to one of you guys. That will be my last point. The next point, though, something that Raid again does a lot, is Raid has hundreds of champions. If we go here, 37, 240, 268, 179. I'm not gonna do the math right now. That's a lot of freaking champions. And honestly, I'm only talking legendary. I'm not even talking about rares. I'm not even talking about epic. I'm only talking about no mythical, only legendary champions. Anyways, over half of them, way more than half of them actually, are completely useless. I would say 60-70% of those champions are almost useless, basically, because what Raid has been doing basically is adding champions, more and more champions every month. So every month there's a fusion, there's some type of event where they always add 3, 4, 5 champions literally every single month, but they don't buff champions. So a lot of champions need to be buffed, because there are some champions that were here back in 2019 and they haven't changed since 2019, and now there's so much more content that those champions are absolutely useless. And I'm also talking about rares and epics and whatnot, but mostly legendaries. But just to say that, and they've actually become better the past couple months. They do buff 2 champions, 2 legendary champions every month. Would be great if they would do the same with rares and epic. The excuse behind it is they don't want to shift the meta too much, which I understand that, but they're just always adding more and more champions to, you know, keep the hype going and create new hype, get people excited. But there are so many, you know, legendaries or epic champions again that could be extremely good, that are just sitting in the vault, that have been sitting in the vault for years, because they don't buff them and they don't take care of the already existing champions. So, you know, and it to me, it's kind of the same when a company, if you have a great product or multiple products, and instead of maybe just improving them, you just want to add more and more products to your catalog, and then you just have too many products. You're diversifying too much, and your core products that are at base pretty good could be a lot better. You don't take care of them, right? And that's exactly what a lot of companies actually do, and that's exactly what Raid is doing as well with the champions. I don't know if it's a good comparison, but I really don't want Godforge to do the same. Obviously, some champions are going to be a lot better than others, of course, but I really don't want to get to a point where they just keep adding champions and champions every single month, and then after a couple years, half of them are absolutely useless because they don't take care of them, right? The last thing I really don't want to see in Godforge, and again, if I see this, I'm out. At least for that specific content, I will not be doing it at all. And to transition into that, I want to mention another thing, is the diversity of champions and what they do in each faction. I think Raid does actually a terrible job at this, but you do have factions that do have a lot more champions than other. So if you see here, we have 3, almost 4 complete row, and here we have 2 and some champs. So you have some factions that have a dozen legendary more than on other factions, and then the diversity of the champions, what they do is not super diverse. So you may have, in some content, you may have such a big restriction. I think Godforge is actually doing a pretty good thing with the Tower of Order and Chaos, because it's only 2 criteria, right? So literally half of the champion in the game will go in the chaos or tower, the other one in the order tower. So there will be a lot of diversity in that in that scenario, but I really don't want to see super narrow scenarios. And what I mean by this is you have a good example with faction wars with raid, but also if you look at Curse City, you have levels that let's see, that one's okay, I guess. This one, for instance. I mean, look at my account, guys. I have a 45 million power account, and I don't even have a legendary here that I can use because of the limitation, right? This is one of the highest level. I mean, this is like end game super hard level, and I can only use champions from those three factions that are the three probably most limited faction in raid. And then I'm limited to spirit, rare, and epic champions. So if they're gonna do stuff like that in other content, which to me that's super frustrating, just because it's too limiting. I do love a challenge, and I do love having some limitation like this, just like the Tower of Chaos and Order, like they mentioned. It's a little bit of a restriction, but not too much. And then if they also do content with factions where you can only use champions from the same faction, that's fine too. It's a little bit of a restriction, but it's not too much, as long as there's good diversity in specific factions, because then some factions are super easy, some others are super tough to finish. In that content here, the limitations are just too much. It's too narrow, it's too difficult, and it's so frustrating because you have even some massive accounts that cannot do it. I mean, I could do it, but I would have to just go, and do masteries on all the champions and re-gear all of them, and it would be a pain in the ass. So what content like that, where it's so restrictive, I freaking hate it, and I really don't want to see that. Again, then you have the faction wars, where it's also restrictive because you have to stick to the same faction. I really like the normal factions, where that's the only restriction, and then you still have the challenge where you have to keep everybody alive. But then the hard mode is actually also very frustrating because of the stuff they ask you to do, right? They have challenges that are just frustrating. So don't let any weak hit. That's okay, I guess, because you can just use if that was in Godforge, you would just use eternal champions because they can't weak hit. If you have enough eternal champions, of course. But then you have challenges, defeat 10 plus enemies while your champions are under veil. It's like, well, this is very limiting. Unless you have a gear set that you can put on everybody, or you have a champion that gives the veil to everybody, and you have to make sure they always have veil, basically. It become very restrictive and very annoying, and it's a little bit too much in my opinion. So again, I do love some challenge, I do love some restrictions, but not too much. And if you do have a lot of restrictions like they do in raid, you have to have very good diversity in the faction, so we have options, and it makes it enjoyable to theory craft and face that challenge. Anyways, guys, that was kind of my about 7 things that I really don't want to see in Godforge. We'll see. Some of those might happen, or they may just happen differently. I'm not sure. Again, I would love to get your opinions in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next Godforge video.